The Congress of the South African Trade Union is throwing its weight behind the public servant strike set to take place next Tuesday. Workers have resolved to embark on a national shutdown following failed wage talks. Joining us now is Sizwe Pamla, who is the spokesperson for Cosatu. Sizwe, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. Let's start with your reaction as Cosatu to this final offer by government. It looks like it's being purported as though it's a new revised offer. The first line in that government statement this morning says, today public servants received the final offer of an average of 7.5%, but it's actually the same offer of 3% combined with the 4.5% in the form of cash allowances that workers have been receiving already for over a year.
Well, look, it's a lame attempt at propaganda. We've seen all of this before. Firstly, it just shows us that not only is this administration treating its own employees as glorified slaves, it also assumes that they are idiots. The reality is there is no 7.5%. These workers were paid a stipend of 1,000 last year. It's an unpensionable stipend. It doesn't impact on the baseline in terms of salary increases. So this stipend was extended on the 1st of April. Why? Because government said, look, we can continue to pay workers this 1,000 while we negotiate an increase. And then an increase of 3% was tabled, was rejected by workers. A conciliation process took place and workers still rejected this offer. So government, to try and confuse not just workers but also South Africans in general, decided to go back and look at the stipend and say, look, according to our calculations, this 1,000 actually amounts to 4.5%.
Yeah. So
if we take this 1,000 at 4.5%, combine it with the current 3%, we think we are paying you 7.5%, which is really an insult to workers because what stopped them from actually saying early on in the negotiations that you actually don't deserve an increase because you are already sitting with 4.5%. Yeah. They agreed that there was no increase. The only increase they were offering was 3%. Only now when they are trying to just really confuse South Africans in particular, they are trying to create an impression that there's an offer of 7.5%, which is very disappointing.
Yeah. Do you think this was a deliberate move by government and the intention was to confuse the workers or just to confuse ordinary South Africans that are watching these developments closely?
Well, both. Firstly, they think this is going to demobilize workers against this planned action next Tuesday. And what is said about this is that workers have proven that they are playing a long game. They are in this for a long haul. So the instability that is going to be created in the public service is not going to just be next week. It's something that is going to be with us for the next 15 months. Number two, of course, they are trying to play South Africans against workers because an average citizen who's struggling, hearing that these workers are sitting with 7.5% and they are still going on strike, is going to feel like, look, these people are greedy. So it's an attempt to first demobilize workers by sowing confusion, but also to play workers against South Africans.
But government, Sizwe, could have said, take the 3% and we drop the 1,000 rand stipend. But they didn't. They're saying, we stick to the 3% that we're offering you, but we also make the 1,000 rand stipend permanent. Is that not better?
Well, firstly, I don't want to go into the minutiae of the offer at the negotiations because I didn't sit at the PSCPC. I don't know what were some of the issues that were put forward that led to government extending the offer on the 1st of April, number one. Number two, I was not there when unions themselves, after looking at both the 1,000 stipend and the 3%, decided to take a position that they were rejecting. So I'm not really going to represent them on that front. All I can say is that based on the briefing they've given us, the government only offered them 1,000 rand and a 3% offer. And so far, as things stand, workers have rejected.
Yeah, but you and I know, and I don't expect you to go into the details of what happened, Sizwe. I understand that you're not part of those. I'm just saying that, as a matter of principle, government, when it gave the 1,000 rand to the workers, that was not permanent. In fact, my understanding is earlier this year they said, okay, while we are still finding each other, let's continue with the 1,000 rand stipend. Government had the option to say, we are dropping the stipend, we're giving you the 3%. But they didn't do that. They said, on top of the 3% we're giving you, we're going to augment it with what was temporary. We're going to take those 1,000 rand stipends and we make that permanent. And I'm suggesting that's better than government saying, stick to the 3%. And in fact, what we've been offering you as an interim also falls away.
Well, like I said, I'm not going to reopen the public service wage negotiations on TV. It will be unfair of me to people who have sat at PSCBC for months grappling with these issues to all of a sudden just give answers on the top of my head. There are people who have been entrusted with the responsibility of negotiating, and they have done this since last year. Even this stipend was a negotiated settlement. So the understanding they had when they first signed on the stipend and when they subsequently allowed for this extension to the current offer, it's been a long process. So really, I'm going to respectfully refrain from opening the public.
Okay, all right. Let's look at this then. What are the chances that government is going to come back to the table and revise the offer? Because this 3% is already allocated in the budget by the national treasury. The minister is not going to reallocate the funds unless you expect that. Should government somehow change its mind, money must be repurposed from other government priorities to settle the wage increase.
Well, look, even on this point, I suppose I'll be venturing into on a slippery slope if I start to make predictions. But I don't know what government is thinking at the current moment. But all I know is that unions have said that they are prepared to go into a fist fight with government. All of us would rather avoid a fight. We don't have an economy that can really carry a public service strike. It will create the kind of instability that will actually have long-lasting effects, especially because public service negotiates on a 12-month basis. So if you start to have instability during this financial year, you can predict that in the next financial year it's going to be the same and in the year after. So what you are actually introducing is the kind of labor instability that will destabilize government for the foreseeable future, because every 12 months it means that unions will be going this punch up with government. We do hope that sanity will prevail. We will do everything possible to give support where it is needed and where it is possible to really find an amicable solution to resolve this impasse. But as things stand, we really want to trust that government they have applied their minds on the stance they have taken so far. And they are aware of the consequences. But also unions themselves, they are clear on their position. They have received a mandate. They are pursuing that mandate. But as a Federation of Workers, we still believe that government, when you consider the fact that they reneged on Resolution 1 of 2018 in 2020, and that over the last 2 years, there's actually been a wage freeze, because we are talking about a stipend that is not pensionable. That did not adjust the base levels of public servant salaries. So you have, over the last 3 years, let's say, there's been a wage freeze. So the demands of these workers are legitimate and they are fair. And we do hope that for a government that has made a commitment that, firstly, it intends to improve service delivery, they are really going to look into resolving this issue without a strike, especially because what you don't want in the public service is to have a workforce that is so disillusioned that they start moonlighting. A decade ago, we had this problem when nurses will actually leave their post and go moonlight in the private sector. So once you start to have moonlighting in the public service, it will be the end of the public service.
Sizwe, Pamla, Cosatu spokesperson, thank you for making time for us this afternoon.